knowledge that will help you overcome and strategize in the cutthroat world of real estate. Now, here are your hosts, John and Roberto.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Episode 135, coming to you live from San Antonio, Texas. This is the San Antonio Show. We did a show probably 18 months ago, Roberto, I think, the Texas show. We did it live from the Miami Convention Center, and that worked out okay. So here we are back in Texas, none too soon. I've got, well, first of all, who's my co-host? Where are you, Roberto?
I'm Roberto Cabrera. I'm on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, but I'm very excited to be in big old Texas.
All right. And I've got two guests today beside me. Gordon Von Broock and David.
Hi, everybody. David Lozano here. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for having me.
Also in San Antonio.
Yes.
Excellent. I'm very excited to be here. I'm down here, Roberto, for the Fiesta. Fiesta is a week-long party, 100 events, food courts, festivals, and an event last night. We're going to be doing a Battle of the Flowers reenactment. We're going to be going to 3 parades. It is a town-wide party to rival Mardi Gras, and that's what brought me down here for the town-wide party.
Yeah, you snuck out of town without permission. I didn't know you were there.
I know. And I'm a little overdressed, I think, ordinarily for San Antonio, but everybody is really dressed to the nines for this week-long party. It's very colorful, and everybody is dressed to the nines. Anyway, what excites me about San Antonio is that while everybody's been talking about the Texas real estate market, they generally talk about Dallas, they talk about Austin, they talk about Houston. What happened to San Antonio? So let me turn it over to our two guests, Gordon, and tell us, you're a New Yorker.
Yes.
You're a successful New York agent, and you came down here to San Antonio, and why?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in New York, so been there my whole life. And the very beginning of COVID in 2020 March, I got it. I was like the first round where the OG and everyone got it really bad. I was curled in a ball for 6 weeks, every single symptom you can imagine. Didn't think I was going to make it. But through that, the silver lining was I posted about how serious it was, and I was connected with my now wife on Instagram, and she normally was going from New York to San Antonio back and forth. She had an apartment there. So she just started asking questions. She goes, how bad is it, and what's happening in New York, and all these, and we just got into this incredible back and forth text. And so I'm like, all right, well, the next day, well, let's do a Zoom call. We did an 8-hour Zoom call the next day. And then the day after that, she's like, the flights just opened up, and she goes, I'm gonna go check on my apartment. I'd love to see you. And then we hung out every day for 2 months. It's total lockdown, and proposed, got married. And
this is how you met your wife?
Yes.
Now, David, are you
That's
also
a real
a
love story?
Yeah.
Are you also a New York transplant, or are you a lifer?
No, John, I'm actually from Mexico, and I'm born and raised in Mexico. I actually just moved to San Antonio like a year and a half ago. And yeah, well, we'll talk about more about San Antonio and why I moved there. But like Gordon says, San Antonio, there's a lot of special things about it. It's a booming market, but yeah, born and raised in Mexico.
What differentiates San Antonio? Like when you think Texas, you think of those other cities. You don't, San Antonio you think of, but it's a little bit, it's the 5th city that you would consider just when you even think about Texas.
Right.
What differentiates it from the others?
Well, I think San Antonio differentiates itself from the others as, well, there's a lot of things actually. First of all, one of the largest cities in Texas, in the US actually, 7th largest city in the US. That's one thing you could think about of San Antonio. Other could be, it's one of the greenest cities in America. It's the 44th greenest city in America. There's tons of parks, a lot of recreation. I think that another important fact about San Antonio could be that has one of the largest historic districts in the country. So that's also a really nice thing. There's tons of Gilded Age mansions out there in San Antonio, Monte Vista neighborhood. There's a lot of neighborhoods like that that is very different from other markets like Houston, Dallas. Also, the price point. I think that's one of the most important ones, price point. Still very affordable market.
Wait, let's underline that for Roberto. The average price of a home is $300,000, Roberto. So when you think about Phoenix in the old days, and you think about Florida in the old days, where retirees would go there, where they could have a more affordable life, but those days are over in Florida. Those days are over in Phoenix. Is San Antonio at $300,000 poised to double and triple over the next
Without
decade?
a doubt. And what's really surprising, actually, there's a lot of wealth here that it's just very understated, very different than a lot of the other places. So I'll give you an example. I'm very active in New York City, still do work there. I had a team of 10. And when I met my wife, I couldn't do the team anymore. So I still just go in as an agent, but there was a client here that I met, and they're like, the top of the market would be like $1.5 million home, which she lived in. And she's like, oh, I got a job in New York. I need to pay at a tear in New York. So I'm like thinking, okay, it's going to be $600,000. She goes, $6 million. So, you know, like they have the money, but you don't need to spend it here because, you know, there's nowhere to put it. Like you were to get 5 houses, it doesn't make sense. So it will catch up. And I don't think, and I didn't even realize this, you know, you don't realize how close you are to Austin. I mean, it's about an hour to hour and a half, kind of in that neighborhood, depending on traffic. And it's just slowly moving down to New Braunfels, just like, and Microsoft just did a huge data center. It's a huge cyber area. So I think that San Antonio is definitely, I think it's just catching up. I think it's a great time right now. I think, you know, 5 to 10 years, you can already see just the few years that I've been here, it's just amazing what's happened. Everything's getting more elevated. You can just see the difference of like what's happening with the city and the infrastructure. They're putting a lot of money in the infrastructure here.
One of my best friends in New Canaan came down to Dallas, and she sold her $2 million colonial in Connecticut. And she said, you know, what can $2 million buy me in Dallas? And it was a 1970s fixer-upper.
Yeah.
And not in the greatest neighborhood. And she said, really? Texas is more expensive than Connecticut. And what I'm hearing today is that no, we still have opportunities below $1 million here in San Antonio for something nice.
Yeah, affordable luxury, definitely.
So I know just on the map that Austin is northeast of San Antonio, right?
Right.
More or less. And it's about an hour. It's about an hour drive.
Yeah. Depending. I mean, if you're from New York, you know, the LIE, it can take you an hour and a half to get the Hamptons or 4 on 4th of July weekend. It's very similar. So,
but is that area is that going to fill in, become like a little bit like Dallas Fort Worth kind of thing, or is it further? It won't quite do that.
No, it already has. New Braunfels is right in the center, and it's already one of the most booming cities. I mean, I don't want to know the statistics, but I think it was like one of the quickest growing cities. And one of the crazy statistics, like all kind of the hill country, which is between San Antonio and Austin, where you have a lot of wineries, you have more wineries after Napa. It's the second most amount of wineries that you have in the country after Napa.
And the climate will yield good grapes?
It's more, the wineries are not all, they can only grow certain types of grapes, and the rest they would import from other places, but it's more, you know, kind of a thing where you just go and you know, open a bottle and, you know, they
understood. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Any brands Roberto actually drinks?
I'm not a wine enthusiast, so but there's supposedly some great wines.
He's a New Yorker. He has a refined palate.
About 100 wineries, actually.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
It's 35 minutes away from San Antonio.
Wineries and stuff.
Yeah, 35 minutes to an hour away from San Antonio. There's all of that hill country, the wineries. I was looking into that as well. So it's like about 100.
So who moves here? Do people move here to retire, or is there an industry? Because when I think of what's driving Austin, I think it's University of Texas. And when you've got a University of Texas, which is arguably, you know, one of the top 5 state schools in the country, with all those research opportunities and all that technology opportunity out of it, it's no wonder that the money is coming into Austin. What's causing the money to come into San Antonio, or what will cause it?
So I think two things. And what really got me excited when I came here, because I never thought in a million years that I would end up in San Antonio. The quality of life is incredible, you know, so affordable. It's when I go back to New York, you know, I'm going back and forth New York, and it's $30 now, and here it's, you know, $8. So it's, I think what's going to happen is more and more companies, you know, they went into Austin and all of a sudden things got doubled and got more and more expensive. Labor got more expensive. People are starting to discover San Antonio. They're like, okay, well, if I can go for a third of the price, get land, employees, they're going to come here. And then eventually it's going to explode. It's just a matter of when.
So the difference between San Antonio and say Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or any of these is that this is a state that encourages, that is business friendly.
Yeah.
And in the state that is so business friendly, famously business friendly, you're the only affordable option. It's much more, it's double the price if I was to move my company to Dallas or Austin or Houston.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
So my employees can afford to live here. They can afford that $8 drink. They can afford that $300,000 home instead of that $1 million home. So what businesses are moving into the area? What industries?
Well, I'd say all different types of industries. I mean, it's again one of the largest cyber data. You know, you have, and I think from there it's a victory. I think forget the name of the company. Well, you have all different industries. I just can't think of all the different companies right now.
I think it's interesting to me that, you know, if I was a retiree and I wanted to come down to San Antonio and I say, well, you know, maybe I'd like to open up a coffee shop in my retirement, you know, or to do something, you know, and open up a small business, but would anybody in the community support it? You know, is there any money coming in? Is there investment coming in? And so I think that's what's interesting. You could attract both the young tech workers for the cyber industry and the tech industries, and of course you've got the energy industry. Have you got or is that all Houston, or is that also in San Antonio?
That's also in San Antonio, yeah. But
Yeah.
like Gordon says, there's many kinds of industries that are exploding in San Antonio, driving a lot of millennial population to the area, especially because of what we were saying about the price. You know, it's just affordable luxury, definitely.
But so the demographic that's moving there is leans young more than old.
I think a little bit of both. I mean, affordability is good on whatever age, you know, but
Yeah, sure.
me that I'm a millennial, for example, I see San Antonio and I see, you know, a lot of opportunity for me here. That's why one of the reasons why we moved here, because we can do so much with less. I think that's how people are thinking about it. In Austin, it's just not there anymore. You know, prices are very, very expensive. Dallas too, and San Antonio's barely keeping up in that price. So,
David, where were you before?
opportunity. I was in Monterrey, Mexico.
Okay.
Monterrey, Mexico is in the north part of Mexico, which is also a huge city. But yeah, I actually go back and forth between the US and Mexico all the time.
And is San Antonio accessible? Do you have good flights, good airport there? You can get to New York direct, all that type of thing.
You can travel all over the world from San Antonio, even Europe. There's direct flights now to, where was that? Gordon, I think Frankfurt, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the San Antonio airport, they're gonna do like a $2.5 billion investment in the San Antonio airport in the next couple of years. So they're expanding it. And also, I don't know, Gordon, you've been flying a lot from San Antonio, and me too. It feels like a really calm airport, you know, it's not that crowded. And I think that's also a nice thing. It's also in the middle of the city, so it's very accessible to wherever you want to go at the airport.
Yeah, well, I have something really crazy about, to your point. So from where I live, it's 10 minutes. I leave my house when they start boarding the plane. So I can literally leave my house and be at the gate in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You could never do anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
It's an incredible thing. And I was saying, I still have my apartment, you know, luckily I have a rent stabilized apartment in New York. So I keep that. So I don't have to pack anything. I just get up early in the morning, jump on a plane, work, and then I'm in New York.
Yeah.
Right.
Talk to me about the downtown. I'm staying at the St. Anthony Hotel. It's a beautiful
Beautiful.
Gilded Age, 100-year-old hotel, great history. And I'm about a block from the famous Riverwalk. And everybody encourages me to go down to the Riverwalk. And it's a 2.5-mile riverbank. Well, tell me, why is the Riverwalk so important to the downtown feel and culture of San Antonio?
Well, I mean, everyone talks about the Riverwalk, but to me, the Riverwalk is sort of like everyone talks about Times Square. People that live here, it's not the first place you're going.
Yeah.
It's kind of a place that there's a lot of restaurants, and it's very touristy. It's fun to walk along a river and go to different restaurants and see all the people. But, if you live in New York, you're not like, let's go to Times Square and see all the people. You're going to the other places. So while it's very neat, and I think it has has its place, and walk at night, it's a beautiful to like walk along the river. But other than that, it's I would say there's so many other places that I would go before the Riverwalk.
All right, talk to me about them. I mean, I loved it, but maybe it's because I'm a tourist, and I thought, well, this is what separates your city from, say, Charlotte. What's Charlotte? It's just an intersection of state highways, but but you've got a Riverwalk, you've got a downtown walkable center, and I just thought that was so cool. But where do you go?
It's actually, John, it's actually 15 miles long, the Riverwalk, 15 miles.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's actually 15 miles, and like you said, yeah, it's very walkable, it's beautiful for tourists. Just to add to what you were saying about that tourist area, in San Antonio, we get 34 million tourists per year. That's the 2022 statistic, I think. That's also a great thing for the city, there's tons of tourists coming in.
So
what is the population of
Riverwalk is, to your point, it's very long. So, you talk about the epicenter, and that's probably the most touristy area, but then being so long, it's sort of like the High Line where things just start building along it. The Pearl, probably the most beautiful area of like restaurants, and Hotel Emma, which is awarded, I think, one of the top luxury hotels in the country. It's everything is very unique and curated. And just things are like building all around kind of the Riverwalk, but it's not when I would say don't go to the river, it's not go to the Riverwalk, but it's just not something where you're like, there's so many other things like what I just talked about, and things are being built around it.
So if we can convince Roberto to cash in his New York City apartment and head down to San Antonio, what have you got for a guy like Roberto? A guy like me. I mean, if I would decide this is the place I want to retire to, this is a great, this is a great lifestyle. What have you got for me? And they say $2 million. You said that gets me my pick.
Your pick.
Am I going to go downtown and buy a building? Am I going to be on the outside? What is this hill country everybody keeps talking about?
Well, the hill country is you're further away, but there's 3 areas. You have Alamo Heights, Almost Park, and Terrell Hills, which are kind of, if you're, Connecticut, it would be sort of like Greenwich and Canaan, kind of that. And it's 10 minutes away from downtown, a lot of houses. I think a lot of, there's also the Dominion, which is a little further out, a lot of big houses there. But downtown is more and more what you're finding is people living in from the hill country. They're getting a pied-à-terre downtown, or their kids are all out of the house. They had a big house, and now they're like, okay, we're downsizing. Let's get a condo. There's not, it's definitely more of a multifamily rental market right now. The condo market hasn't caught on so much yet, but I think that's like downtown, I think is definitely, I mean, David, you should probably speak more to it, but it definitely seems like a more younger kind of demographic downtown.
I think it just depends what you're looking for, John. I mean, if you ever want to come to San Antonio and do something, you could probably start by investing in something small. Like I would recommend, for example, something near downtown. Those neighborhoods that Gordon is talking about are probably the top neighborhoods in the area. They're beautiful neighborhoods, more for just living in San Antonio. If you're gonna live in San Antonio, definitely some of the top neighborhoods. But there's also other, I would say, undiscovered areas. In my eyes, like Monte Vista, Alta Vista neighborhoods, which are very historic, and there's beautiful homes. There are 100-year-old homes, 150-year-old homes that are very accessible. So if you like that kind of thing, you know, to have a historic house and fix it. And, you know, that's another thing that you can look into. Another very interesting fact that I was looking into about San Antonio, I don't know if you heard of an app called AirDNA. Well, AirDNA is this app that follows the trends of Airbnb in all over the US and Canada, all over the world, right? So San Antonio actually has a rank of 81% in Airbnb. So that's actually a really good thing. Not a lot of cities in Texas have that rating, you know, for rentals and stuff like that.
The 81% represents what?
Look, let me tell you right now. I have it right here. It's just like
So what does that number represent?
Yeah, like it measures. I have it right here.
Popularity.
Investability, that's it. That's one thing. Investability, rental demand, revenue growth, seasonality, and regulation. So that's what it's measuring. It gives you an 81%. It's actually better than Dallas and Houston. Most of the other markets in the Texas area, San Antonio is one of the top 4 Airbnb. It's kind of undiscovered for Airbnb, actually. There's not enough. So for people that are coming to San Antonio, they're doing a lot of money there, investing in rental properties, renting it per night. So in neighborhoods like I was talking about, let's say Monte Vista, Alta Vista, you can probably buy something for, I don't know, from 500,000 to $1 million. You would buy something very beautiful, like historic, and you could rent it very nicely, buy the room or the whole house, you know?
And when you describe Monte Vista, is that an acre? Would it be 2 acres, or am I out in the country where it's more than an acre? I mean,
Well,
how dense?
Monte Vista is about, I don't know, like 10 minutes away from San Antonio at the most. I mean, from downtown San Antonio. So you're talking about half acres. Yeah, about half acres. But you're close to everything. I mean, in some parts, you're about 5 minutes away from the action. So it's a kind of undiscovered neighborhood, in my opinion. But it's a beautiful neighborhood. Beautiful, beautiful.
So there's a vibrant downtown life and urban life if you choose to have that, which seems a little bit younger. Let's just say you have a client. They get married, they're going to have their kids. The guy's killing it, doing a tremendous, or both of them together. They're making a lot of money. And they're like, look, we really want to have like our little bit of a forever home to bring up our kids for the next 25 years. We'd like to have an acre or 2. Where are they going? Are they going north, south, east, west of the city? Like, where are they? What are their options, and what can they buy?
I think they're going more to the Dominion area, right, Gordon?
Yeah, they're definitely going north. They're going to Stone Oak, towards Bernie. You know, a lot of areas like that, you get a lot more land. You know, just like, you know, pretty much like any city. The further you go out, the more land you're going to get.
But if you want to say 3 acres, you want to build a 5,000-6,000 square foot house. How much does that cost you for the land, to build, et cetera? Like, what sort of budget does someone need to achieve something like that? Which I would imagine in that town, in that city, would be like they just built this amazing place outside of town. You should see it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, just what I said, the top end is probably 2-3 million. You know, when that is like the highest end. I mean, other than I think one of the basketball players put his, you know, they built some 10-acre with all these things, and you know, for trying to sell it for 10 million, and you know, there's probably one person in the city that wants that. So
maybe another basketball player.
Exactly. So it's, you know, it makes, you know, you build that for yourself. But typically, you know, the things that are above 2 million sit for a long time, because it's like cribs. You know, you have this massive house with most people don't need all that lavish. You know, it's very as I was saying, very understated here. Like, you know, people like, you know, more, I'd say more land and more like kind of relaxed house. They don't need an extra 10 bedrooms for no purpose.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're not waiting for one great event to occur that's going to change San Antonio. I'm looking across the street, by the way, at new construction condominiums, 4 stories high. Don't need to go 10 stories, 50 stories. It's a very low, say, flat city, very flat city. So that is a 4-story building set with a big now leasing sign on it. And I see evidence of this all over town, is that they're developing new condos and new buildings in and among old San Antonio. And we're not waiting for one big company to move in and transform apparently it's happening all over, and it's happening very organically.
Yeah.
And it's because of lifestyle, affordability, and a business-friendly climate. Is the infrastructure, do we have enough infrastructure? Because when we talk about a lot of these places that are undergoing such great growth, they don't have enough schools. You talk about Florida these days, and people say, oh my God, it was really good prices before COVID, but the prices have gone nuts, and there's no place to enroll my kids in school. How are the schools, and is infrastructure keeping up with the growth?
Well, as David mentioned earlier, they spent a ton of money on infrastructure here, and they're ahead of the game. And because it's happening organically, I think a lot of the problem happens when, like Austin, or something just explodes right away, and then you're trying to play catch up. It's very difficult. So they are expecting this to happen. So organically, it's happening, and the infrastructure is great. In terms of the schooling, I can't really, speak to like the schooling. I know it's. My wife has kids and they're in school and there's no issues, and but I don't really know about the schooling system.
Okay.
Something to mention, John, is that San Antonio is pretty big. It's just so much space. That's why you feel it's a little bit flat. So I also think that that's a good thing about San Antonio. You can get a lot of space anywhere you go for a very good price. And overall for infrastructure, I think it's still very, very good on infrastructure. It's going to be all right for the next at least 5 to 10 years.
So I'm looking at the map here, and there's kind of a beltway around the city. It's like where the 46 is or whatever. So when we talk about being in the suburbs or being outside of the city, is it outside of that, or is it still within that perimeter?
It's within the perimeter, but the 16.4 is kind of outside the rim, and there's a lot of when you're talking about land. Let's say outside, that's when you start getting into the acre, 2 acre, 3 acre. Inside would probably be ½ acre to acre. The closer you get to the city, like Alma Heights, the place I talked about, or 1/4 acre to ½ acre, kind of in that neighborhood.
And how's the traffic in the city? Like, was the commutability? If you go out of the city, is it a pain? Is that a big compromise to go out, or is it like not a big deal?
It's not a big deal at all. Unless you're going to Austin. 35 is the only road, so that 35 can be a real mess. But other than that, it's very easy to get around. But I have to say, literally, I love everything about San Antonio except for the drivers. I think that's the only thing. They're crazy here.
Yeah.
but other than that, I can't say one negative thing about San Antonio.
Yeah.
Where do people go when they leave San Antonio? You're saying they get a pied-à-terre and then they have something in the hill country, which is how far away is the hill country, and what's different about the hill country? I mean, when you guys talk about hill country, there's not a whole lot of elevation in this part of Texas. I'm thinking the hill country is about as flat as Central Park.
Oh, I was just rolling country, let's call it.
So yeah, how far away is this hill country, and is that full of lakes and forests and trees, or what would I see in the hill country?
Well, it's probably about between 35 and an hour away from the city center. You can drive 40 minutes and you'll be in a winery. There's forests, there's rivers, sometimes there's caverns too. It's beautiful areas like Bernie. Bernie's not that far away from the city center, and it's a beautiful little town. Tons of little cafes, stuff like that.
Which way are you going? North?
North, yeah.
You're describing north?
Yeah. For Bernie, yeah. But you could also go the other way. You can go south. There's Fredericksburg. There's a lot of little towns very close to the city. I would imagine there's probably people that live there. Like they live in Bernie and then they just travel to a little apartment in downtown or something smaller in the city. But I mean, still, you can live very close to downtown San Antonio, have a decent sized lot. I mean, if you guys are in New York, ½ an acre is just like, especially in the city, it's just like, it's never gonna happen. So ½ an acre is pretty decent size to live 5 to 10 minutes close to everything, in my opinion.
Is there like a historic district where there's like townhouses and things like that in the city?
Yeah, that's the district that I was telling you about, Monte Vista,
Okay.
Alta Vista neighborhood, King William, all those neighborhoods. All of those neighborhoods together are actually one of the largest historic districts in the country, in San Antonio, and it's a very undiscovered area. Beautiful, beautiful homes there.
So where's the investment opportunity? Should I be looking out in the hill country? Should I be looking at renovating a building in the downtown? Where are the investment opportunities for people who are getting excited about a direct flight from Manhattan? I mean, you came from Manhattan and you say it's very commutable. You can be in the airport in 15 minutes from your house, and you can get to New York, and then you can come back to a fabulous lifestyle. And you've invested in this coffee shop. Tell me, what caused you to say, you know what, I think I'm going to invest in this area and I'm going to open up a business in this area. So talk to me about the investment potential and why here.
Well, as I was saying before, organically, you can just see that it's how it's building. Very similar. We talked earlier when I lived in Manhattan, watching Williamsburg, and just kind of how it organically, and then it just boomed. And I think it's very similar. That's going to happen here, and all these developers are taking huge plots of lands and creating
neighborhoods,
basically neighborhoods within all these different, like Tobin Hill and off the Pearl. They just opened up this week. Do you know the name, David, of that marketplace?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's
market, something like that
now, but it's like an eataly, and so that just opened up this week. So there's all these different things that are just slowly happening, and it just will attract more and more people. And so to the areas, King William, Tobin Hill, they're great investment opportunities. And investment here is incredible compared to, say, New York City, because New York, people, if you live there, you hold, appreciates, but it's very hard with all the common charges and everything else to like ink out and make sense of like buying something and renting something out. And then if someone doesn't leave, it's, trying to get somebody out, good luck. It's, a year and a half to go through the whole court system. Here, it's like, if there's any problem, it's very landlord friendly. If there's a problem, you're like, okay, you're out.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But so from a standpoint of if there's so much opportunity as far as like for development, because there's land and things like that, and you buy property, you definitely don't have an inventory problem, but is that also going to suppress any sort of price appreciation, because there's always going to be new properties coming on. And if your population growth isn't at least at a certain level, then your prices are literally going to stay kind of stagnant. Am I wrong?
You would think so, but Roberto, but look at Phoenix. You stand there in Phoenix and you say, well, this desert goes forever, and they've got an unlimited supply of land. And you've seen the prices go bananas in Phoenix. Same thing in Austin. The prices are now $2 million, average in the neighborhoods you'd want to be in Austin. Why not? Why not $2 million average in the better neighborhoods of San Antonio in the next 10 years?
Actually,
so I think it's like anything, is proximity. To your point, you can always go out. Like, if you look at Miami or any place like that, you go 30 minutes away, 40 minutes away, and all of a sudden things are getting really cheap, and they can build forever. When you're in this closer to the core and the center, it's going to get more and more expensive, less inventory, more desirability of people wanting to live there. And probably the further out you go, like anything, they're going to build more and more. You have the large companies like Toll Brothers, and they'll do like 400 homes and things like that. It's a totally different market. I can't speak to that in terms of how much, all of a sudden maybe it will be stagnant and not grow in that way. But I think as you get close to downtown, I think there's incredible opportunity for growth, and prices will keep increasing.
Yeah, population in San Antonio is projected to grow about 35% in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's a lot. That's like 1 million people.
You know what the key is for me? It's that airport. The fact that you have the 7th largest city in America, you've got another $2.5, you said $1 billion going into the airport investment. And so if you've got a fabulous airport that can get everywhere else, and you're accessible to New York and equally accessible to Frankfurt, I think that you can't miss. If you've got a great airport. When we did the Montana show, remember that, Roberto? We talked and we said, so Montana, big place, where are the most valuable places? And they said, you got to really be within an hour of an airport. Yeah. And those, that's the valuable ranches. And we said, okay, you need accessibility there to water and an airport. Got it. And so when I look at San Antonio and I say, well, you've got a Riverwalk going right through the middle of town, and you got an airport, you've got the recipe for success. So no, I'm excited about this. So you put this coffee shop here, and I'm looking at least 100 brand new condos across the street. Is that accidental?
No, so where we are right now is my wife's had been on this corner for 10 years. She has a hair salon and it's 3,500 square feet. This whole area, there was nothing. It was completely abandoned, like just a large commercial space. And she had the foresight to rent the place, take this. And then when we got married, I'm like, this is now because of everything that's built around, let's do a coffee shop. We're going to do a private members club here at night. As you can see, it's a little more elevated than your typical coffee shop.
Did you buy the building?
No, we didn't buy the building. No.
Okay.
But
Not yet.
Right?
yeah, so I
That's the next step.
and we're like heavily invested, and we just opened this week a salon and spa at Saks Fifth Avenue in the mall here. So it's a 3,500 square foot spa and hair salon called Main and Company.
I got to tell you, last night, Roberto, I was at the event, the big Fiesta, and it was a bit of a debutante ball. And the lady next to me, and it struck me what an entrepreneurial culture we have here. I talked about big businesses moving in, but San Antonio was built on the backs of entrepreneurs, because the lady next to me, she pointed to these ladies up on the stage and she said, yeah, her grandfather started Southwest Airlines and her grandfather is fourth generation oil business. And that one started a bank and Geico Insurance over there. And I thought, oh my God, everybody around here, if they're not opening up a coffee shop or a Saks Fifth Avenue, they're opening up an airline. I mean, what an incredible, what an incredibly energizing and vibrant place to grow up.
That's exactly to my point of we don't even realize, like, and that person who has one of those companies will live in a $1 million home. They're not in a $20 million home that they're like flaunting their wealth. I think that's going back to your point about what's the difference. I think Dallas, you would see that.
Big hat, no cattle.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
But won't every city, I mean, this world is becoming more and more difficult to find really special places that are not, they're not overpopulated, that are special, just like what you're talking about. Don't you think that eventually 10 years, 15 years from now, it's going to get a little, not ruined, but it's going to change. It's going to be a lot of money there. People starting to throw around money right, left, and center, building big houses, doing that kind of thing. Don't you think? That's more of a philosophical question than anything else.
I know. I mean, listen, we all kind of want both. We want things to keep growing and have larger and more expensive houses, and at the same time, you don't. So it's it's hard to find that balance always. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of the locals do not want it. They're happy with it being a secret, but when you're this close to Austin, which have already boomed, it's kind of hard.
Roberto, we just did a show in St. Bart's, and St. Bart's is going to continue to be expensive because of scarcity. They're not allowing any more building to happen. We just did a show in Palm Beach, and West Palm Beach. Very opposite was true. They talked about another 200,000 people of growth in the West Palm Beach market. And they talked about the dozen industries that they had targeted. And so West Palm Beach is a growth story, and they're saying that, and we are better equipped to manage that growth. And they talked about their airport and their infrastructure and managing growth. Whereas then you flip back to our Aspen show, they're not talking about expanding the airport in Aspen or Nantucket or your St. Bart's show. So there's two different tracks going on here. You've got some of these places that say, we are not allowing additional growth and we're going to watch prices rise to unaffordable levels and we don't care. That's just the way it's going to be. The Hamptons. And then you've got a couple of these markets which are embracing the growth and affordability. And I think San Antonio is the poster child for that kind of and just like I got excited about the West Palm Beach, and I was like, come on, you guys have grown so much already. Is the bloom off the rose? They said, absolutely not. We've just gotten started here. And showed me great big fields. And I said, are you going to plow over the sugarcane fields and build condos and high rises? And they said, no. Those fields are, out there in the country. We've got plenty of room for condo development. What I hear you saying is there's still plenty of room within a 15-minute drive to the airport.
Yeah.
And we're going to manage our growth around that effectively. It's fascinating to me, the pro-growth, pro-landlord attitude that Texas has. I will say, I met a guy who appraises ranches last night, and he said he's talking to a family about selling their 10,000 acre ranch on the Colorado River. And I was like, is that a $50 to $100 million ranch? And he said, yeah. And I said, why? And they said, some of these people are afraid that the tax laws are going to change, and it might be the last opportunity they get. So I guess that's part of what's driving some of the turnover, is some of these people are trying to diversify, while they still can, while the tax laws are favorable and not a huge amount of tax. Do you anticipate that Texas, the favorability is going to change, or do I have a 10-year opportunity to be investing in Texas?
Well, I mean, like we talked about, every city is very different, but in San Antonio, I still think we're 5 to 10 years away from getting to that kind of point where it starts feeling, where things are really changing. And you mentioned like a perfect example of that change was the Hamptons. I've had the commercial building out there for almost 30 years, and it's an old potato barn that I bought with my partner, and originally it was a nightclub out there, and it was nothing there but fields around. And now it's, completely developed, and you can't even go from Southampton to East Hampton, which normally would take 20 minutes. Now it takes 2 hours on a big weekend. So, that's where too much growth is not good. It's like, there are all these beautiful houses, great places, but it becomes too much, where it's just like, where I think it's a little more spread out here. So it's a lot different. It's a city as opposed to just a one highway place. But I do think there's time. I don't think it's going to happen like overnight. It's going to be organic. I think it will take 5 to 10 years, but it will happen.
You hear that, Roberto? You can get to San Antonio faster than you can get to Southampton.
I know.
Just saying.
I know. You're just saying. I hear it. Can we talking about the taxes? What are the taxes like on a purchase or a sale? Like what sort of transactional costs are there if you're selling a $1 million home of some sort? Are there any mansion taxes? Are there any?
No, that's what I was going to say. It's not like New York where you have all those, you have the transfer tax and the mansion tax and all. There's not that. It's just your basic. And, I think property tax is a little higher than most places here, but you don't have income tax. So, and that's, if you're living in New York, you know what that's like.
On that $1 million house, what can I, in the hill country or even downtown, what kind of property taxes am I looking at per year?
Say like if you were to buy a house for, let's say, about $1 million, you're probably talking about $18,000 a year.
That's comparable to Connecticut, and we've got, but we've got income tax. Yeah. So if that's your only tax, that's not so bad. Are you where are you attracting people from? California or New York or both?
Both.
Yeah.
Or Mexico.
And Mexico, yeah. A lot of people from
where I'm from,
a lot of people investing in San Antonio, yeah.
Why? Talk to me about the Mexico migration.
Well, it's very close to home, very close to Mexico, and it's very affordable. So people see it as a second home, and an opportunity to be in the US market in Texas. They like how things work in Texas, and it's just affordable. So they buy a lot of homes in San Antonio.
What's the climate like there? Is it drier than, for example, Houston, that I hear is so humid?
It's definitely drier than Houston. Mm-hmm. And that's the number one thing everyone brings up, because this last summer, I think it was, I don't even know how many months, it was 100 degree, and there's incredible the morning's 70 degrees and end of the day it's 100 degrees. It's a 30-degree difference during the day. It's incredible in that way. But the one thing, you know, that I always bring up, because everyone's like, how do you deal with the heat? I'm like, well, how do you deal with the cold? I mean, you know, during the hottest months, you jump in your car, you do what you got to do, and then it's nice at night in the morning, you know, so it's you just plan your day around those times. But you know, during the October, it's gorgeous. December, gorgeous. You know, like, so it's just, you just live your life differently. And I prefer, to be honest, to jump in a car with AC than to bundle up in the cold. Maybe because I did it my whole life, but.
How cold does it get? December, January, February? Like, what's the coldest it'll get there?
Well, it was in the teens. But that was, it happens once a winter for 3 days, but typically 40s.
It's not bad. So what do you do for fun? I mean, I already said, oh, everybody must go down to the Riverwalk. And you're like, nah, that's for tourists. But I'm going to tell you that, you know, I'm in Connecticut where I can go 2 hours north and I can go skiing for the day. And I can go 20 minutes south down to the waterfront in Norwalk and jump on a boat and go fishing. I can be in Manhattan to go see the theater. So a lot of people want to be, you know, in retirement, or when you're a young professional, you want to be able to go out and have fun and hit the restaurant scene. Is it a great restaurant scene? And what are the things to do besides going to a San Antonio Spurs game?
Well, restaurant scene's amazing. Actually, the Culinary Institute is here.
Ooh,
so
okay.
You have a lot of amazing chefs, a lot of great food here. You know, a lot of, you know, outdoor activity. That is one of those things that I never was.
What does that mean? Like rodeo? Do we all go to rodeo here?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's a second question.
Okay.
Another one, still have my cowboy boots yet. So, but
yeah,
it
so what
depends
do we
what you
do
like.
around here?
For me, it was golf. You know, I've wanted to golf my whole life, and it's almost impossible thing to do in New York. So it's an amazing, you know, there's tons of you have rivers all around, again, the hill country, which, you know, the wineries, there's caves. I don't know where else, David, maybe some places that you go.
It just depends what you like, you know. There's tons of parks also, restaurants. There's hundreds of new restaurants coming up, very elevated, like Gordon was saying, new concepts. I mean, there's something for everybody here.
But you have to be restricted on some of the outdoor activity, like during the summertime, right? Because it's hot.
It's hot, but you could go to the water areas where there's rivers or stuff like that. You can get refreshed there. I mean, personally, it doesn't bother me that it's really hot. I kind of like it, actually.
But so, for example, like children who have children's sports are playing soccer in the afternoon, they're playing baseball in the afternoon, things like that. Can they do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. I mean, well, you know, Texas is known for their football, and they're playing in 90-degree heat. I mean, I just was with somebody yesterday, and he was talking about that, how they would like, but you know, they try to do it earlier and later, as I was saying, because there's huge difference in temperature. So they'll be up early in the morning, play for 2 hours then, and then 2 hours at the end of the day. So you just kind of have to plan around that a little more.
Can I talk? I'm going to tell you the bias of a lot of people watching this show is they think of Texas, they think of that movie Giant, where the Yankee comes in from the east, from Virginia, where everything's green, and they get to Texas and they look around as far as they can see, and there's nothing there. And I got to tell you that that's the other side of Texas, right? We're in the part of Texas where there's actually green grass right across the street. There's a couple acres of green grass right across the street. And you just mentioned hill country with rivers and forests. Not the Texas of Giant that scares, frankly, it scares a lot of people. Oh my God, I'm going to get there and it's just going to be an empty desert. It's not a desert at all. No,
but also Texas is, I mean, I think it's what's the second largest state. I mean, it's huge. It's massive. So, you know, just the amount of time it would take to go across the state, you know, so there's all different types of areas. So yeah, it's like a lot of people go to a place called Marfa, which is about 5 hours, and it's really beautiful, you know, mountainous, and it's, you know, it's about a 5-hour drive. And that's the thing. I think people from here, you know, that took a little bit of used to. It's like, oh yeah, we're just going to go to Marfa. And to me, that's like, you know, an hour and a half away. It's 5 hours. But once you get there, it's spectacular. I mean,
Wasn't that made famous just because the photographer did that one photo of the Prada store or something, like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
There's
I
also
gotta tell you though, if I want like really good skiing, I got to drive 4 or 5 hours up to Vermont to do it. So I get it. I mean,
But here it's 10 minutes to go to San Antonio Airport. You fly into Denver,
right.
which is, right there, and you're up in the mountains.
Yeah, see, it's a total different mindset.
Different mindset.
It's hard to get to the New York airports, even in New York, if you want to go somewhere. And the fact that the airport's 15 minutes for you is pretty incredible. And that you get anywhere from it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Roberto? Are you convinced?
It's interesting. I mean, the affordability thing, coming from a place like New York, I'm just thinking, of Gordon, who's like, was a New Yorker, and to go there and just be like, man, this is cheap. Like that would be nice.
My wife is telling me all the time, why don't we cash in our chips and head south? And why are we working so hard? Why are we on the rat race? Why don't we just cash in and go to a less expensive part of the country? And for her, it's where she grew up, Charlotte, which is not so cheap anymore. And Florida, not so cheap anymore. So I think for a huge number of our listeners, they're going to look at this $300,000 average home price, and they're going to say, wow, I could just sell my home, move down there, and truly retire.
Yep.
And there's something to do, and there's great restaurants, and there's interesting people, and I could even open up a coffee shop or a small business and, find something to do. I wouldn't be just playing golf. And I think that's a huge appeal. And I believe you when you say that we're going to double or triple the size of San Antonio over the next decade. I believe you.
How long's the flight? How long is the flight from NYC?
3.5. But as I said, it's like my office. I mean, I 15 minutes on the airport, I have my stuff in New York, I jump on a plane, I work on my phone, I take a really early morning flight, and then I'm like, I'll set up appointments at noon in New York and go right from the airport, to my office and take people out. It's very, very easy.
So the people that are coming there are considering San Antonio. What's your competition? Is it Austin? It's not Austin.
No.
no.
I don't know. I would say in terms of competition.
I mean, is it Nashville? Is it
what else are they considering at that $300,000 price?
Yeah,
not much.
Not much. That's
yeah.
what I'm like. Not really.
One of the few hidden gems in the US right now, San Antonio.
All right. So if I'm interested and I want to hear more, I can find Gordon or David. You're two of the only, dozen or so agents. And Douglas Elliman's got an office in here in San Antonio. So if I went to Elliman.com, I type in San Antonio, I'm going to find David and I'm going to find Gordon on that page, and I can get in touch.
Yes.
Is that the best way to do it?
That's the best way.
Okay.
You can also visit Luxury Listings Texas, luxurylistingstexas.com. And you can see the whole San Antonio market.
LuxuryListingsTexas.com.
nice?
I'm going to see them all. All right. Well, if you love real estate like I do, then like this show, tell your friends, and subscribe. And where are we going to be next week, Roberto?
And then let's talk about Grace Farms real quick.
Yes. Grace Farms, our sponsor. We thank them once again. 80 acres in New Canaan, Connecticut. You can imagine what that real estate costs? 80 acres with a beautiful river building. And you can go there and have a cup of tea with Frank in the tea house. You can buy some of their teas and coffees, and you can go basically one of the most beautiful spots in Fairfield County. GraceFarms.org. Check it out. Thank you, Roberto, for another great show.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Gordon.
Thank you.
And where are we next week?
I don't know. Is it the Wealth Report next week? No.
I think we've got the
Haber,
Wealth
American
Report
Real
coming
Estate.
up. And what else?
Jason Haber, American
Oh,
Real
yeah.
Estate.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about NAR these days, and everybody's wondering, what about NAR? this is a new association that may compete with NAR, may replace NAR. And that's why we wanted to talk to Jason Haber next week about the future of NAR and the American, what is it? American what?
Real Estate Association.
The American Real Estate Association. So we're going to find that out about that next week. But again, thank you, gentlemen. This is a great show.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So
Thank you, guys.
get some cowboy boots, John. Come back.
And a big hat, right? A big hat.
See you guys.